Hi, this is Steve Erickson from MidlifeSolopreneur.com.
And I'm Jake Erickson from FlowCampaigns.com. And this is our daily debrief.
So in this short form podcast, we'll give an update on what we've been working on for the day, so you can follow along with the progression of the Midlife Solopreneur journey. We'll also share helpful tips and strategies along the way that you can implement in your own solo business. So Jake, what day is it today, and how far have we got into our podcast?
So today is August 3rd, and this is day 8 of the podcast. And this is actually take 2 of this recording because someone forgot to hit record the first time around.
Yeah, okay. We only got around a minute or two before I realized,
Yes.
so that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, and actually one of the things that we talked about was, I think you mentioned on a previous episode how much easier it's getting now actually coming up with the podcast topics and things to talk about. And, that links back to something we've mentioned previously about just getting out there and just getting started. At first it's a little unnatural talking into the camera and, coming up with something new to say. But I think with practice that gets easier. And, that's part of the reason that we started this podcast was practice for ourselves, wanting to obviously document the journey, share some helpful tips and tricks and strategies that you can use for your business. And really it's just as much self-development as it is, helping all of you as well.
Absolutely. And the self-development and getting used to speaking on camera is, for me, for instance, something that I really had to overcome. So I resisted starting a podcast for weeks because I wasn't comfortable doing this. But, sometimes you just got to jump into it and do it. And that's really my tip number 1 for the day, is that you just got to do it.
Yeah.
That's the long and short of it. Just do it.
I think, a lot of people would say, I see this person on YouTube or I see this person on a podcast and, it's great for them. They have a big audience. Of course, they can make videos or they can make, podcast episodes. But remember, everyone started from somewhere, and part of it's just getting out there. And there's really no reason why this is not something that you can do as well. We have a nice green screen and fake background here, but when it comes to audio recording something on your phone, just works just as well. And just getting out there and showing your work to the world.
Absolutely. And for those on video, you can see the green screen right now, what it looks like. So we have a nice brick background instead for the normal.
Yes.
So one of the things that I wanted to share with you is today is that I've been working on week 4 of my course. And week 4 is all about constructing your high-end offer. And rather than talking to you about the high-end offer, I think what I want to talk to you about is how important it is to have structure and purpose behind what you're doing. So the week 4 is really, for me, from my perspective as a course creator, I have to have a method, something I'm teaching step by step to impart to my students so they can understand and implement it themselves.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a framework yourself for what you are doing, then how will you actually make a decision on what to teach and how to teach it and how to work with your clients? What I see quite a bit is when I speak to people is they want to go out and coach, they want to go out and teach, but they don't have their framework for how they're going to be teaching it. Mm-hmm. And they're literally winging it for each individual client that they speak to and making it up as they go along. And it's such a strong recommendation for me is that you're building a journey for your people, for your clients, that when you have this journey that you're taking them on from solving their issue to bringing them to where they want to be and where they need to be and being happy in their life and fulfilled in what they're doing, you have to have a outline of a method of steps that you are taking them through, a journey you're taking them through to get them from A to Z, basically. Mm-hmm. Without that journey, you can't guarantee results. You don't know what to do next, and there's no clarity. I actually heard today about another coach who failed to have that kind of structure. And she had a number of different clients, and they were basically getting different things at different times. They were confused about what they were going to do next. And they were told to do things that were not connected with anything. They went like, what am I going to do with this? And the coach said, well, maybe that wasn't the right thing. Let's try something else. And that really paints you in a very poor light for your client. So my really strong recommendation as a strategy is that, like I am doing today, I have my structure, my methods that I'm taking people through, and I'm putting that into a course format. You, when you're doing your teaching, you have to have your structure defined. You have to have your methodology defined and take people through a journey of transformation in your work with them.
Yeah, That actually ties very nicely in with what I wanted to talk about. So today I finished editing one of my classes for Skillshare. So the link to actually find that would be flowcampaigns.com/Skillshare. And it was a class actually all about frameworks, some of the thinking that consulting firms use to solve new problems. A consulting firm will be paid a lot of money, often millions of dollars, to come into a company, and very quickly they have to figure out a solution to that company's problems. And that will often involve frameworks. So they'll have a standard set of procedures that they'll be able to apply to all of their clients, and they know exactly how things are going to run. So very similar to how you're talking about now, having a framework and a way you approach problems and guide people through a journey is very important. And my Skillshare class was all about frameworks and actually sharing a couple of frameworks and a couple of characteristics of what makes a good framework, for instance. And one of the things that we're taught in consulting, and I wanted to share here, is when you're creating a framework, you want it to be something they call MISI. That is mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. Now, that's a mouthful to say, so we say MISI. But essentially what that means is each of the parts of the framework have to be different to each other. And they should basically make up, the sum of all the parts should make up the whole picture of what you want to achieve. So as an example, one of the frameworks we use very often in consulting is the profit framework. So profit, literally by definition, is your revenues minus your costs. So revenues and costs are two separate things, and together they make up the whole element of profit. And then from there, you can dive into different strategies and different things that you can do to, for instance, increase your profits. So looking at revenues are really made up of how much are you selling and how much are you selling it for. So your quantity and your price. And so then when you think about, for instance, being a coach and trying to increase your revenues, rather than going, okay, I need to make more money, you can then say, well, actually, I want to focus on my prices and get more, essentially more money from my customers, or I want to gain more customers. And two of those are actually two very different decisions that you'll be making, and you'll be employing different strategies and ideas for each of those as well. And then from there, you can even get more specific. So for instance, on the quantity side, again, you're serving clients. One method to get more clients is to actually get more leads into your business and convert them at a higher rate. So that will lead to you having more clients. You can also have your existing clients stay with you for a longer period of time. So maybe they were seeing you for 3 months and you extend that out to 6 months. So essentially you've doubled the lifetime value of your clients. Another way is when your client purchases from you or provide a service, you actually upsell them to a higher value package. So they're actually getting either a larger quantity of services, or on the price side, you're actually delivering them a higher value product. So actually, when you think about your business decisions through a framework, it really standardizes the way that you approach business problems and removes a lot of that, as you're talking about, that ambiguity, that mixed messages. You're very clear on what it is you're targeting and what it is you're doing. And for instance, if you know that I want to be increasing the number of clients that I have, that'll be a very different approach to increasing the duration that clients will stay with you. So having that approach to how you actually tackle that business problem is one that you can use then for your own business and your own marketing, your own approach to getting customers. And then you also need to be thinking about what frameworks can you apply and provide for your clients to help them get the results that they want. So as you were saying, you're a coach. If you're coaching a specific topic, you want to make sure that you have a structure for that topic that you're coaching, and you're able to guide your clients from the beginning to the end. And there's no ambiguity on step 5. You're not conflicting that with information you're providing on step 2, for instance. And there's an actual journey where each of the steps are discrete from each other.
So I think what Jake talked about here is a very, very important concept. And I have to say, it sounds complicated, but it's not actually that complicated. No. It's just a different way of thinking that we are not used to. So when you take what Jake is saying and break it down and actually look at it, it really becomes simple because the framework makes it simple. So when you're applying it to your own business, when you take the time to actually look at your business and what you're doing and using the kind of frameworks we're talking about, there'll be an outline, a step-by-step method for how you think about it and how you apply it, which is actually easy to do.
Yep.
And the great thing about the framework is that it guides you through the whole process. When you are trying to do these things without the framework, you tend to get lost. You miss a lot of things. You double up on some work. And what the framework allows you to do is to keep control over that process. And it actually is more simple than it sounds. I promise you that.
Yeah. So, and I think one of the worries that people have about frameworks is, if I have this defined process, does that stop me being flexible and catering to the needs of my clients? And actually what we find is that by having a framework, it actually helps you be more efficient and provide better value. So the reason for that is, if, for instance, we're business coaching and a client comes to you and says, I want to earn more revenue. Really, if you take that as your input and don't have an established framework, you could really brainstorm a million different ideas that you could come up with to improve their business. And those ideas may have varying levels of scale. They might be one big idea and then another small idea that you could do. And, there's really no pattern or theme to any of those ideas. However, if you actually use a framework and break them out in their different parts, you can actually be very structured and methodical in your approach and be creative within that defined space.
Absolutely.
So if I'm saying I want to increase revenues, there's a lot of things that I could come up with. And then if I say I want to make it so my clients stay with me for a longer period of time, then I know having that structure and that problem helps me be very creative within that space. And then I can move on to the next thing. Okay, now they have my clients staying longer, I want them to upgrade to a different package.
Yeah.
So as I move them from one step of the framework to the next step of the framework, then again, I can be creative within that area. But by being methodical, I'm not scattered. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel every time. I don't have to spend a lot of preparation time thinking about what I need to do. I know I can go straight into my framework and save a lot of time and energy there, and know that I'm delivering great results that I deliver for every client.
Absolutely. And I would also like to emphasize, we're talking about it in a business context right now, but it doesn't matter actually what you are coaching. You can be coaching in a spiritual way. You can be doing career coaching. You can do it weight loss. It applies in the same way. You find out what the problem is, the challenge is, and you use a framework, and you can develop your own framework for how you look at that, how you structure it, and how you get results for your clients. And that is the key thing. And for yourself, when you're using frameworks, get results for yourself as well.
Yeah. So. I think just as another quick example here, I actually used to teach or coach other students on how to get a job in consulting. And again, I would use a framework approach for that. So, there's what do they do during the networking meetings when they're actually meeting the company and meeting some of the people who work for the company? Then what do they do in their resume? Then what do they do in their cover letter? And then what do they do when it actually comes time for the interview and then after the interview? So again, breaking them down into those segments means I can give my advice to the students looking for a job in a way that is structured within each of those topics and is relevant for them at the right time. We don't necessarily want to be talking a lot about the interview technique before you've even written your resume. So being able to approach things in that logical manner and take them again through that journey of first learning about the companies to actually interviewing and potentially getting a job, we're using a framework the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the core message today. Plan out your steps and have a framework for how you're doing it, and develop your own framework if you need to.
Cool.
So, all right, I think we can call this episode a wrap. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to sharing or continuing to share our journey with you, and hopefully see you tomorrow.
Yes. See you tomorrow.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.